This is a 14-ounce piece of clay. I'm going to center it, but I'm going to center it with one hand. And the way I do that is I tuck this thumb tightly to the edge of my palm. I use this curve at the center of the lump of clay. And I use these two fingers to pull the clay towards me as I push downward on my thumb. I'm going to dry my hand here and show you exactly where the contact is. Now I brace it with this left hand. The more strength I have with my right hand, better off we are. Here you can see, this is where I'm touching the pot, and here and here. Just remember to keep your thumb tight to your palm. Lean it inward and pull the clay towards you. Most of the time we make lids that are too big and too heavy. We use too much clay. So 14 ounces works really well here. I'm going to keep it really small under here. I don't want this lid below, as I make it, to be really wide. Too much trimming. Stretch it out. Now, I've got quite a thickness here. It's a bevel thickness. My fingertip is underneath, and that creates the height of the lid. I'm going to take my first measurement, and we're at 3.5 inches, so it can come out a little further. And now it's ready to create the gallery. One more measurement. Still a little bit more. Now, before I make this, I want to show you what this cross section looks like. So it's quite thick out here, and there's very little clay down below. That's what we want to make for every lid we produce like this. So I make this shallow bowl with a heavy, heavy rim on it. I'm going to take a measurement here. And right now I'm measuring from this point to this point, right where that line is. And here's a little secret that I was taught a long time ago. To make this little rise, and this little rise or gallery only has to be tall enough to grab the inside of the jar. It doesn't have to be an inch tall. And the way to get that easily is put 2 or 3 fingers below, put your first finger on top, finger inside. Now push down with your fingernail and squeeze these 2 fingertips together. That creates a rise and creates a gallery. So let's measure. About 1/8 of an inch to go. So I'm going to pull the whole thing outward. I'm making sure that this rim out here isn't too thin. It wants to be about the same thickness as the storage jar rim. And there's 4 inches. I'm going to put a little swirl at the inside and clean it all up. Undercut below and wire it off. Now I pick these up with my fingertips, trying to be careful not to push my fingertips up underneath and into the floor of the pot. But this surface on the bottom is really dry and tacky, so it sticks to my dry fingertips easily. Okay, the next step, this jar is now a soft leather hard. I need to finish it. I need to clean up this base area, and the easiest way for me to do that is just lightly stroke it with my thumb and smooth it. That's one way to do it. If it's a little too stiff to do that, here's another option. Just roll it around, smaller and smaller and smaller. That rounds off this bottom edge. I usually pop this bottom in just a fraction so it doesn't bow out at all. Now the last thing I'm going to do at the foot area here is put my signature stamp on it, my little chop. It's 4 little leaves, one for each of my children. The clay is soft enough. It just tells people who made this pot. Now one other thing I love to do on this, when I made this pot, I told you I cut a groove here and made some lines here. I'm going to decorate this. I'm going to do it really simply with this piece of stick. It's just smooth cornered, smooth edged rather, and smooth corners too. What I'm going to do is lightly go inside and support the pot on the inside, push the corner into the pot and draw it upward. I'm going to work like a clock here so I get them spaced correctly. This just puts some sort of handmade facets into it, which I kind of like. Reminds me of a pumpkin. I'm going to put a few more. So I put 4 down, and now I'm putting 4 between those. Now, I could leave it there, but I'm going to finish it and come from the top and meet that groove there. So I have the same finish on them, top and bottom. I'm bringing the tip of this tool very close to the line that's at the top, this upward line. Kind of pumpkin pot. Maybe I'd make these a little deeper to really sort of push them in. Great thing about this is, if you put the right glaze on these pots, the glaze will pool and catch your eye where these grooves finish at the base. Okay, let's set this aside, and now let's finish the lid. To trim this lid, to get rid of this area, I'm going to put a pat of clay down on the wheel head, dry it off, and stick the lid to the clay. I don't want any water on this pad because it gets to be a sticky mess later. I'm going to use a trimming tool. Just trim away the excess. Make sure it's totally dry. Something that helps here is if you take a tool or your fingernail, make a few lines here. Just like centering lines. The same lines that are on your wheel head. Okay. I'm going to dry off this wheel head, and there's a reason I do that. All these little chips that are going to come off from the top of the lid are going to attach themselves to the wet wheel head. I want them off, out of my way. Set this on here. Okay, I'm going to trim this lid from the top to the rim in a bevel. It's very thin here, and it's got a wiggle wire pattern on it, and I want some of that to show in this jar. Now, notice something here. I'm connecting my thumb to my trimming tool. It gives this tool some force. I actually push the tool with my thumb, with my left thumb. That's what drives it down into the clay. My right hand is really just to stabilize the tool. Make sure we stay level and centered. I'm going to put a little step right out here. Soften the edges. Smooth it. Now I'm considering what kind of handle do I want across the top of my lid. Two thoughts on that. If the lid is wide enough that a normal person can pick it up by just using their hands, often I don't put a knob on it. This one I'm going to. So I'm going to take, I don't know, half a pound of clay, form it into a carrot, wet it, and notice I dip the clay in the water, not my hand. Makes things a lot cleaner. And pull it out. Now I want a uniform piece because I want it to be equal on both sides. And here's something that's pretty visually important. The edge of this handle, I want it to be virtually the same thickness as the edge of the lid and the edge of the pot. I'm going to tip my thumb upward and pull it down into the surface of the handle. This creates a few lines, which I really want because my glazes will pool in those lines, and then smooth them off. Take that away, and with a dry hand, pinch the handle off. Now, you'll notice something in all these videos I do, these little clips, I don't score or slip anything. I just wet them with clean water, and if the pot is at the right consistency, attaching them is easy. I'm going to tear away the excess, and tear away the excess. I'm going to use a small dowel, and you know what? The end of this wiggle wire works really well. I'm going to press this. It makes it possible to get them uniform. The one thing I don't like at this point are the edges, or these ends. So I'm going to use my trimming tool and cut them back a little bit. Use a sponge and soften them. Smooth everything again. That's my pumpkin-shaped storage jar.